All right, so we've got a really cool article to dig into this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Comment gérer les trolls sur les réseaux sociaux.
Okay.
And that translates to how to manage trolls on social media.
Interesting.
It seems like you're pretty interested in learning about internet trolls and how to deal with them.
Yeah. Definitely a timely topic for sure.
So let's just jump right into this thing.
Sounds good.
So what really stood out to me right off the bat was how the author talks about, the real world impacts of trolling.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's not just about like annoying comments,
Right.
These people can actually like stir up some serious stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And they can even push people right off these platforms.
Yeah, sure. It's a real problem.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It is.
It's kind of like digital bullies, right? Like
Yeah.
the playground is the whole internet.
The whole internet, exactly.
So the article defines a troll as someone who, posts inflammatory content to try and get a reaction. But it seems like there's a lot more to it than just defining what a troll is.
Right.
Like, it really
Yeah.
emphasizes how important it is to understand the different types of trolls and their motives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really crucial to, recognize that not all trolls are the same.
Right.
You've got your kind of like run-of-the-mill mischief makers, the ones who just love to get a rise out of people.
They just want to see the world burn kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there are the trolls who have a more calculated plan,
Wow.
Maybe they're trying to spread disinformation or they're trying to create chaos in a community.
Yeah.
Their goals are way more harmful, and that makes them even more dangerous.
So it's not just about being annoying.
Right.
Sometimes it's about really causing some serious damage.
Yeah.
And understanding their motivations seems key.
Definitely key.
But, like, how do you even figure out what's going on in a troll's head?
Well, the article suggests thinking about it kind of like a game,
Okay.
like a strategic game. Not about some deep psychological dive, but more about recognizing patterns and their motivations.
Okay.
Are they bored? Are they looking for attention? Do they want to like manipulate or even harm others? When you can understand their goals,
Right.
you've got a better chance at predicting what they'll do
Right.
and countering them,
So it's a bit like a chess game, but with way more twisted rules.
pretty much.
So let's say we can start to, figure out who the trolls are and kind of predict what they're going to do.
Okay.
What's the best way to deal with them?
Well, the article really stresses proactive prevention, and this is where things get interesting.
Okay.
Think about it. If you're a troll looking to cause trouble,
Uh-huh.
you're going to go to places that are poorly managed.
Does that make sense?
Easy to stir up.
They're going to go where they can get a reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the article says to focus on creating a really strong, positive community right from the start.
Okay.
And that's where clear community guidelines are important. Everyone needs to know the rules.
Right.
What's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah, like the rules of the road.
Exactly.
So it's not enough to just like have rules. You got to actually enforce them.
100%. Otherwise, it's like a playground with no supervision. Chaos is going to happen.
It's going to be a mess.
Total mess.
Right. And that's where moderation tools, both manual and automated, come in.
Yeah, the article mentions how a lot of platforms now have these really sophisticated features
Oh, cool.
that can filter out a lot of trollish behavior.
So it takes some of the pressure off of the human moderators.
Exactly, but it does acknowledge that there are always going to be situations where you need a human
Right.
to make a judgment call.
Like those gray areas.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a combination of technology and good old-fashioned human judgment
I think so.
to keep these digital playgrounds, safe.
Safe and troll-free.
But let's be real here, even with the best defenses, some trolls are going to slip through the cracks.
Of course, no system's perfect,
Mhm.
and trolls can be pretty clever.
They can be sneaky.
Yeah, so it's important to be able to recognize them,
Spot them in the wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how do you tell the difference between a genuine comment, even a negative one,
Right.
and one from a troll?
Well, the article highlights some really key indicators, and I think these are super valuable for anyone online these days.
Right, Matt, I'm listening.
So look for a really provocative tone, comments that seem designed to inflame things,
Okay.
rather than actually contribute to the conversation.
Yeah.
Watch out for repetition, especially if it's nonsensical or totally off topic.
And they're just trying to derail things.
Yeah. And of course, personal attacks are a huge red flag.
Right.
A troll is not interested in discussing ideas.
Yeah.
They just want to attack people.
So it's not just what they're saying, it's how they're saying it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing a pattern of behavior
Uh-huh.
that's meant to disrupt and provoke
Yeah.
instead of having a real conversation.
Okay, so you start to develop this awareness, and your troll radar starts to get better.
It's like learning a new language.
Okay.
The more you practice, the better you get at it.
I like that analogy.
Thanks.
So, okay, our troll radar is working.
Right.
We found a troll.
Uh-huh.
Classic advice is don't feed the trolls,
Right.
but is ignoring them always the best way to go?
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The article seems to suggest that sometimes engaging with a troll can actually be surprisingly effective.
Oh, really?
Really?
When would you say it's a good idea to actually engage with a troll?
Well, sometimes a strategic response can actually shut them down,
Okay.
or even turn the tables in a way that helps the community.
Interesting. So, like, instead of getting mad or defensive, you use, like, humor or wit
Yeah.
or even logic to disarm them.
Yeah, it's like verbal judo.
Yeah.
Using their own momentum against them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting fire with fire, you're trying to outsmart them.
That's the idea. The article doesn't really go into detail about specific techniques,
Right.
but there are tons of examples online of brands and people using humor to just shut down trolls brilliantly.
I bet it must be pretty satisfying to outsmart a troll with a good comeback.
It can be, but you have to be careful with humor.
Right.
You don't want to stoop to their level.
Right. You don't want to become the troll.
Exactly. You want to find that sweet spot
Mm-hmm.
where you can kind of diffuse the tension, show how absurd they're being,
Yeah.
and maybe even get the community laughing along with you.
So it's about using humor strategically,
Yeah.
not just for laughs.
Right.
It's about disarming the troll and keeping the community positive.
Exactly.
But what about those times when humor is just not appropriate?
Okay.
Like when a troll's being super aggressive or spreading harmful information.
Yeah.
Is there a way to engage with them productively in those situations?
There is, and it takes a lot of restraint and commitment to logic and facts.
Okay.
It's about responding calmly and rationally, using evidence and reason to counter their arguments.
So you're basically treating them like a reasonable person.
Yeah.
Even though they're not acting like one.
Exactly. And the goal isn't really to change the troll's mind.
Right.
That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's more about showing the rest of the community that the troll's arguments are flawed or ridiculous.
So you're kind of taking the wind out of their sails.
Exactly. You're not giving them the emotional reaction that they want.
You're not feeding the troll.
You got it.
Okay, so you're staying calm, sticking to the facts, and letting the community see through the troll's BS.
Yeah,
But that must take so much patience,
it does.
especially when they're being intentionally provocative.
It's not easy, and it's not the right approach for every situation.
Right.
If the troll is just there to cause chaos and isn't interested in any kind of reasonable discussion,
Yeah.
it's probably better to just ignore them
Okay.
or use those platform tools to block or report them.
Yeah, you got to pick your battles.
You do.
But I'm seeing a theme here.
What's that?
It seems like the most effective way to deal with trolls is to not give them what they want. Attention and a reaction.
You're absolutely right. Whether you ignore them,
Yeah.
use humor to disarm them,
Mm-hmm.
or calmly refute their claims,
Right.
the goal is to take away their power.
Take away their fuel.
Exactly. But there's another layer to this,
Oh, okay.
and it might be the most powerful tool we have.
Okay. I'm
The
intrigued.
community.
Pro-romance.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
We talked about encouraging users to report troll behavior.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're suggesting something more proactive.
I am. It's about actively creating a culture where trolls just aren't welcome, where their tactics are met with resistance.
So how do you create that kind of environment?
You can cultivate a community where positive interactions are the norm.
Okay.
You celebrate good behavior, you amplify constructive dialogue,
Uh-huh.
and you make it clear that the community values respect and thoughtfulness.
I like that it's like creating a virtual neighborhood watch.
Exactly.
Everyone's looking out for each other
Yeah.
and calling out bad behavior. And when trolls see that their efforts are being met with indifference or even mockery,
Yeah.
they're less likely to stick around.
You're going to move on to easier targets.
Exactly, places where their tactics actually work.
It's like building up an immunity to trolls.
Yeah.
You're making your community inhospitable to their negativity.
Exactly.
And I think the author's example of managing that community page for that small town
Right.
really highlights this.
Yep.
They hardly ever encountered trolls because it was such a positive and engaged online space.
It's a perfect example of how a strong, healthy community
Yeah,
can naturally deter trolling.
it's like planting a garden full of beautiful flowers.
I love that.
The weeds have a much harder time taking root.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
We have.
And I think we're starting to get a handle on this whole troll thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about identifying trolls,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what makes them tick,
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out ways to neutralize them.
Yeah.
But are there any other, effective strategies for managing these digital troublemakers?
You know, one thing the article touches on that I find fascinating
Okay.
is this idea of developing a troll radar.
Ooh. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Does that mean, we all need to become, digital superheroes with spidey senses for trolling?
Well, maybe not quite superheroes,
Okay.
but it is about improving your awareness online
Uh-huh.
and becoming more attuned to the subtleties of how people communicate.
Okay.
The article mentions some red flags to watch for,
Yeah.
like really provocative language,
Right.
repetitive nonsense, and personal attacks.
Yeah.
But it's more than just spotting those individual signs.
Okay.
It's about understanding the context and the intent.
So it's not just about looking for specific words, it's about understanding the overall vibe.
Exactly. Think about it when you're having a face-to-face conversation with someone.
Right.
You pick up on way more than just their words.
Yeah, your body language or their tone of voice.
Right, you notice their facial expressions.
Right. All those things tell you what they're really saying.
Exactly. It's like you're reading between the lines, sensing the vibe of the conversation.
You can kind of tell if they're coming from a good place or not.
Exactly. And even though online communication doesn't have those visual and auditory cues,
Yeah.
there's still subtle signals that can tip you off.
Oh, okay.
It's about paying attention to patterns of behavior.
Mm.
Do they always post inflammatory content?
Okay.
Do they seem to enjoy provoking others?
Mm.
Are they genuinely trying to contribute to a discussion, or are they just trying to disrupt it?
Those are some good questions to ask.
They are.
It's like once you start seeing trolls for what they are,
Yeah.
they become way easier to spot.
Right.
You start to recognize their tactics,
Yeah.
and you can predict their next move.
It's almost like you develop a superpower.
I like that.
The ability to see through their disguises
Yeah.
and understand their game.
And the more you practice, the better you get.
Exactly.
I love that. It's like we're training our minds to be troll developing machines.
Pretty much.
But even with our newfound superpowers,
Yeah.
dealing with trolls can be emotionally exhausting.
It can be.
We talked before about self-care
Right.
and building a support system, especially for those who manage online communities, day in and day out.
Yeah, it's a tough job.
It is.
Yeah.
Are there any other tips for staying sane?
You know, I think one of the most important things is to set boundaries.
Okay. Boundaries, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. It's about recognizing that you don't have to engage with every troll you come across.
Right.
You get to choose how much time and energy you're going to spend dealing with them.
So it's like recognizing that their negativity is their problem,
Yeah.
not yours.
Exactly.
You don't have to take it on.
You don't.
Okay.
It's totally okay to walk away from a conversation that's going nowhere, to just block or mute someone who's constantly breaking your community guidelines,
Yeah.
or even to step away from the screen
Right.
when you need a break.
That's such a good reminder. It's so easy to get sucked into those online battles
It is.
and feel like you have to respond to every single thing.
You don't.
But sometimes the best response is no response at all.
Sometimes silence is golden.
I like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon we have.
It can be.
And it's important to remember,
Yeah.
protecting your mental health
Yes?
is not selfish.
Not at all.
It's essential.
It is.
You can't fight trolls effectively if you're burned out and exhausted.
Exactly. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that.
You have to take care of yourself
Yes.
before you can deal with the challenges of the online world.
Right. And speaking of challenges,
Okay.
the article doesn't really get into this specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it raises a really important question.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
In a world where we're all interacting online more and more,
Right.
how do we balance free speech
Mm-hmm.
with the need for healthy and productive online communities?
That is a really big question.
It is. How do we create spaces where people can share their diverse voices and be respected,
Right.
while also protecting those spaces from the negativity of trolls?
It's a tough one.
It is. It's complex.
It is.
And there's no easy answers.
Nope.
But I think it's a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, we need to figure out how to create online spaces where people feel safe to express themselves
Yes.
without fear of harassment.
Or abuse.
Exactly.
And maybe that's the real takeaway here.
What's that?
It's not just about learning how to deal with trolls.
Right.
It's about creating a better internet for everyone.
I like that.
It's about understanding how online communication works,
Mm-hmm.
developing the skills to navigate it effectively.
Right.
And creating a culture of respect and civility online.
Well said. And while the challenges are definitely real,
Yeah.
I do think there's reason to be optimistic.
Okay.
Platforms are getting better at recognizing and addressing troll behavior.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
They're giving users more control
Right.
over their online experience
Right.
and making it easier to report abuse.
Which is so important.
It is, and most importantly, there's a growing awareness of the problem
Yeah.
and its real-world consequences.
I've definitely noticed that more people are realizing that trolling isn't just harmless fun.
Right.
It can have a real impact on people's lives.
Yeah. And the article we've been talking about really emphasizes that,
It does.
especially the author's personal experiences with trolls on different social media platforms.
Those stories really make it hit home.
They do.
They remind us that there are real people behind those screens.
Yeah.
People who could be hurt.
People with feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while those experiences highlight the emotional toll of dealing with trolls, they also showcase the resilience of these online communities.
Oh, absolutely.
Despite the negativity, despite the challenges,
Yeah.
people keep coming back.
They do.
They keep connecting.
They keep building relationships.
Yeah. It's like the human need for connection is stronger than the forces that try to divide us.
I love that.
That gives me hope for the future of the internet,
Me too.
despite all the negativity
Yeah.
and challenges.
I think that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with.
It is,
Yeah.
even in the face of trolling,
Yeah.
even in the darkest corners of the internet, there's always hope.
Always hope for a kinder, more connected world.
Beautifully said.
Mm.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
do you have one final thought?
Sure.
One piece of advice for our listener
Absolutely.
as they navigate this
Yeah.
crazy world of online interaction?
I would say be mindful.
Okay.
Be mindful of your own behavior
Uh-huh.
and how it might affect others.
Right.
Be mindful of the power of words,
Mhm.
both to hurt and to heal.
Yeah.
And most importantly, be
Yeah.
mindful of the potential for connection and community
Yeah.
that exists online.
Even the most unexpected places.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful and important reminder. Mindfulness is really at the heart of creating a better online experience for everyone.
It is.
Okay, so let's bring it back to our main topic, internet trolls.
Yeah.
We've talked about understanding them, identifying them,
Right.
and figuring out how to deal with them.
Yep.
Is there anything else we can do individually or collectively to combat this problem?
You know, I think one of the most important things is to just talk about it.
Okay.
For a long time, trolling was dismissed as just a harmless prank.
Right.
Something to just brush off.
Like no big deal.
Right. But as we've talked about, it can have serious real-world consequences.
Yeah, it's not just about hurt feelings or a few nasty comments.
Right.
It can lead to harassment, bullying, even real-world threats.
Yeah, and it can really take an emotional toll on the people who manage online communities.
Yeah, those folks are on the front lines,
They are.
dealing with these digital troublemakers.
Exactly. So by talking about it, by raising awareness, we can help people see that trolling is not just a nuisance. It's actually harmful and unacceptable.
It's like shining a light on the problem. It can help get rid of the darkness.
Exactly.
It can empower people to speak out against trolling
Yes.
and support those who are being targeted.
And when more people are aware of the problem,
Yeah.
it becomes easier to hold trolls accountable for their actions.
Right.
Platforms are more likely to take action,
Uh,
communities are more likely to push back,
yeah.
and individuals are more likely to feel like they can report abuse.
It's like the more people who are aware of the problem and willing to speak out,
Yeah,
the less power trolls have.
exactly.
Okay, so we need to talk about it.
We do.
But we also need to be proactive
Right.
in creating online spaces where respect, empathy, and constructive dialogue are the norm.
Absolutely.
So it's about creating a culture where trolling just isn't welcome,
Exactly.
where it's met with disapproval and resistance.
Right. And it's more than just having community guidelines and moderation tools.
Yep.
It's about actively promoting positive interaction, celebrating good behavior,
Yeah.
and encouraging people to speak up when they see something wrong.
So it's about focusing on the positive
Yes.
instead of just shutting down the negative.
Exactly. We're creating spaces where people feel safe, respected, and valued.
I love that. And when you create that kind of environment,
Yeah,
trolling becomes way less appealing.
it does.
It's like trying to plant a weed in a garden full of healthy flowers.
It won't grow.
It just won't survive.
Exactly.
And that really speaks to the power of collective action.
It does.
It's like we can all be gardeners in our own way,
Yeah.
cultivating online spaces that are welcoming supportive, and resilient.
I love that.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really empowering message for our listener.
What's that?
You don't have to be a superhero or a tech expert to make a difference.
Right.
By being mindful, speaking out against trolling,
Yeah.
and contributing to a culture of positivity online, you can help create a better internet for everyone.
You can.
That's such a powerful and inspiring thought.
Yeah.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of internet trolls.
It has been a journey.
It has. We've covered a lot,
Yeah.
from understanding their motivations
Right.
to developing strategies to deal with them, and ultimately to creating a more positive and resilient online world.
I hope our listener got some good insights from this.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, even though trolls might seem like an inevitable part of online life,
Yeah.
they don't have to define our experience.
No, they don't.
By being mindful, by being proactive,
Yeah.
and by working together,
Together.
we can create online spaces that are truly welcoming, engaging, and enriching for everyone.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, one thing I find really fascinating that the article touches on is this idea of developing a troll radar.
Ooh, troll radar. I like that.
Yeah, you know.
Does that mean we all have to be like online superheroes with spidey senses for trolling?
Well, maybe not quite superheroes.
Okay.
But it's about being more aware online and really paying attention to the subtle ways people communicate.
Okay, so like reading between the lines a little bit.
Well, exactly. The article mentions some red flags to watch out for.
Okay, like what?
Like super provocative language, repetitive nonsense, and personal attacks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's more than just spotting those individual things.
Right.
It's about understanding the context and the intent.
So it's like in a face-to-face conversation.
Right.
You can tell if someone's coming from a good place or not.
Exactly. You pick up on their body language, their tone of voice.
Right, their facial expressions.
You know, all of those things give you a better sense of what they're really saying.
Right. It's like you can feel the vibe of the conversation.
Exactly. And while online communication doesn't have those visual cues,
Right, we can't see them.
there are still these subtle signals that can help you spot a troll.
Okay, so what should we be looking for?
Well, it's about paying attention to patterns of behavior.
Okay.
Do they consistently post inflammatory content?
Right.
Do they seem to really enjoy provoking others? Are their comments actually contributing to the discussion, or are they just trying to derail it?
So you're saying it's not just about what they say.
Right.
It's about how they say it.
Exactly. And once you start to see trolls for what they really are,
Yeah.
they become a lot easier to spot.
Okay, so it's like you're developing a sixth sense for trolls.
It's like you develop a superpower.
Yeah.
You know, the ability to see through their disguises and understand their game.
And the more you practice this, the better you get at it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're basically training our minds to be troll detecting machines.
Pretty much.
I like that.
Yeah.
But even with our newfound superpowers, dealing with trolls can be emotionally draining.
It definitely can be.
You know, we talked about self-care and building a support system, especially for those who manage online communities, like every day.
Yeah, they have a tough job.
They do. Are there any other tips for protecting yourself from the negativity?
I think setting boundaries is key.
Okay. Boundaries. How do you do that online?
Well, it's about realizing that you don't have to engage with every single troll.
Okay.
You get to choose how much time and energy you want to spend on them.
So it's like realizing their negativity is their problem, not mine.
Exactly. You don't have to take it on.
So what are some practical tips for setting those boundaries?
Well, it's totally okay to walk away from a conversation that's going nowhere,
Okay.
to block or mute someone who's constantly violating your community guidelines,
Yeah.
or even just step away from the screen completely when you need a break.
That's a good one. Taking a break.
Yeah,
It's so easy to get sucked into those online arguments
it really is.
and feel like you have to respond to everything.
You don't?
Sometimes the best response is no response at all.
I agree. Sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon you have.
I like that. And protecting your mental health isn't selfish.
It's not. It's essential.
Right. You can't fight trolls effectively if you're burned out.
You can't, it's like they say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. You have to take care of yourself first
Exactly.
before you can handle the challenges of the online world.
I agree.
And speaking of challenges,
Okay.
the article doesn't really talk about this directly,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it brings up a really important question.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
In a world where we're interacting online more and more,
Right.
how do we balance free speech
Uh-huh.
with the need to have these healthy, productive online communities?
That's a tough one.
It is, right?
It's like, how do we create online spaces where people can share their diverse opinions
Yeah.
and feel respected,
Right.
but also protect those spaces from trolls and negativity?
It's a big question.
It is.
It's complex.
Very complex.
And there's no easy answers.
No, there are not.
But I think it's a conversation we need to be having.
I agree. We need to figure out how to build online spaces
Yeah.
where people feel safe to express themselves
Right.
without being afraid of harassment or abuse.
And maybe that's the real takeaway from all of this.
What do you mean?
It's not just about learning how to handle trolls.
Okay.
It's about creating a better internet for everyone.
I like that.
It's about understanding how we communicate online, learning how to navigate those spaces effectively,
Right.
and really creating a culture of respect and civility.
Well said.
So yeah, the challenges are real,
They are.
but I'm feeling optimistic.
Me too. I
Yeah.
think there's reason to be optimistic.
Okay, why is that?
Well, platforms are getting better at recognizing and addressing trolling.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
They're giving users more control over their experience and making it easier to report abuse.
That's huge.
It is. And most importantly, I think there's just this growing awareness of the problem
Right.
and how it impacts people in the real world.
Yeah, more and more people are realizing that trolling isn't just harmless fun.
Right.
It can have real consequences.
Absolutely. And the article we're discussing really drives that point home.
Yeah, with those personal stories from the author
Yeah.
about dealing with trolls on different platforms.
Those anecdotes really personalize the issue.
They do.
They remind us that there are real people
Right.
behind those screens.
Not just usernames.
Exactly. People who can be hurt by online cruelty.
And while those stories show how emotionally difficult it can be to deal with trolls,
Yeah,
they also show how resilient online communities can be.
they really do.
Despite all the negativity and the challenges,
Yeah.
people keep coming back.
Mhm.
They keep connecting.
They keep building relationships.
It's really inspiring.
It is.
It's like this human desire for connection
Right.
is stronger than anything trying to tear us apart.
I love that.
That gives me a lot of hope for the future of the internet,
Me too.
even with all the negativity and challenges out there.
Absolutely. I think that's a powerful message for our listeners.
It is. Even when things feel dark,
Yeah.
even in the face of trolling,
Mm-hmm.
there's always hope.
There is always hope for a kinder, more connected world.
It's beautifully said.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this conversation,
Okay.
do you have one final piece of advice
I do.
for our listeners as they're navigating this crazy world online?
I would say be mindful.
Okay.
Be mindful of how your own behavior impacts others.
Right.
Be mindful of the power of words.
Words can hurt.
They can hurt, but they can also heal.
Yeah.
And most importantly, be mindful of the potential for connection and
Yeah.
community that exists online.
Even in unexpected places.
Exactly.
That's such a great point. You know, being mindful of ourselves and others
Yeah,
really is key to making the internet a better place for everybody.
absolutely.
But okay, let's get back to our main topic here.
Okay.
Internet trolls.
Right.
We've talked about, how to understand them, spot them,
Yeah.
and develop strategies for dealing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else we can do, like on our own or together, to really combat this problem?
You know, I think one of the most important things
Yeah.
is just to talk about it.
Okay.
Trolling was dismissed as just a harmless prank for a long time, you know?
Right, like just a joke.
Exactly.
No
The-
big deal.
But we've seen it can have real consequences.
Yeah, it can go way beyond just hurt feelings.
Right.
A few nasty comments.
Uh-huh.
It can escalate into harassment, bullying, and even threats.
Yeah, and it can really take a toll on the people who manage online communities.
Yeah, those folks are dealing with it every day.
They are. It's a tough job.
It is.
So by talking about it,
Mm.
by raising awareness,
Right,
we can help people see that trolling isn't just a nuisance. It's actually harmful.
right. We need to take it seriously.
Yeah, and when we talk about it,
Uh-huh.
it empowers people to speak up
Oh, okay.
and support those who are being targeted.
Yeah, it's like shining a light on the problem helps to get rid of the darkness.
Exactly. And the more people who are aware of the problem,
Yeah,
the easier it is to hold trolls accountable.
okay.
Platforms will be more likely to step in.
Right.
Communities will push back,
Mm.
and individuals will feel more comfortable reporting abuse.
So it's like a group effort?
It is. The more people who are aware and willing to speak out,
Yeah.
the less power trolls have.
It takes away their power.
Exactly.
Okay, so we need to talk about it.
We do.
But we also need to be proactive
Right.
in creating online spaces that are positive.
Yeah, spaces where respect, empathy, and constructive dialogue are just the norm.
So we're not just reacting to trolling.
Yeah.
We're actively building something better.
Yeah, we're creating a culture where trolling just isn't welcome.
It's like we're building a wall against negativity.
Exactly. And it's more than just having rules and tools.
Right.
It's about actively promoting positive interactions,
Okay.
celebrating the good stuff,
Uh-huh.
and encouraging people to speak up when they see something's wrong.
So it's like shifting the focus.
Yeah. From shutting down the bad to building up the good. Exactly. We're creating spaces where people feel safe, respected, valued.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you know, when you do that,
Yeah.
trolling becomes a lot less appealing.
It does. It's like trying to plant a weed in a healthy garden.
Right. It's not going to survive.
It won't.
It needs a different environment.
Exactly.
And that really shows the power of working together.
It does. We can all be gardeners in our own way,
I like that.
cultivating online spaces that are welcoming and resilient.
And that's a really empowering message for our listeners.
It is.
You know, you don't have to be a superhero to make a difference. Just by being mindful, speaking out against trolling,
Yeah.
and promoting positivity,
Mm-hmm.
you can help build a better internet for everyone.
Absolutely.
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into the world of internet trolls.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of ground today,
We did.
from understanding their motivations
Mhm.
to figuring out how to deal with them,
Right.
and most importantly, to creating a more positive and resilient online world.
I hope our listeners found it helpful.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, even though trolls might seem like an unavoidable part of online life,
Yeah.
they don't have to control our experience.
They don't.
By being mindful, being proactive, and working together,
Yeah.
we can make the internet a better place for everyone.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.